Welcome to my channel. I'm Simon Hochwerda, a Dutch man of Korean descent, and this is my journey to reconnect with my roots. I was born in South Korea in 1966 as Kim Kwon-si and was sent to the Netherlands for adoption when I was just 4 years old. I grew up with paperwork labeling me as an orphan, but that wasn't the truth. After years of wondering about my past, I discovered that my mother is still alive in South Korea. That's why I made the life-changing decision to return to my homeland and search for her. The woman who gave birth to me. The mother I never had the chance to call Mom. Join me on this emotional journey, where the past, present, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and child come together. Don't forget to subscribe to follow my story and experience the heartfelt moments ahead. Simon's journey, finding his mother, his homeland, and himself. Simon, Kim Kwon-si, never imagined that his search for his birth mother would lead him to an even more painful truth. He was not just an abandoned child, he was part of a deep historical wound, one in which tens of thousands of children like him were sent abroad through unregulated international adoption programs. South Korea, with its strict one blood, one nation ideology, once refused to accept mixed-race children like him. Many single mothers were forced to give up their babies, unable to protect them from social discrimination. Now, as Simon returns, he is not only searching for the woman who gave birth to him, but also confronting a past that even his homeland prefers to forget. Meeting the women who once worked in camp towns, areas near U.S. military bases where many mothers like his once lived, completely changed Simon's perspective. These women had spent their entire lives carrying guilt, the pain of losing their children, and memories that never faded. Many couldn't hold back tears upon seeing him. To them, he was a reflection of the children they had lost, babies they had never been able to hold again after being separated. An elderly woman wept as she touched his face, whispering, "You may not be my son, but you are a part of us." Her words left Simon speechless, for the first time in his life feeling a true connection to this place. Simon's search for his mother was anything but easy. South Korea's international adoption system in the post-war years was chaotic and lacked transparency. Many records were falsified and countless documents were lost, making it nearly impossible for thousands of adoptees to ever find their biological families. Simon knew that he might never discover who his mother was, but that didn't stop him from searching. And along the way, he found something else: understanding, connection, and an entire community of mothers who had lost their children, and children who had lost their homeland. Each of them was searching for a missing piece in their lives. Beyond reconnecting with his roots, Simon was also on a journey to heal himself. Growing up in a foreign culture, he had always felt out of place, as if he didn't truly belong anywhere. But now, standing on the soil of his birth country, listening to the stories of the women who could have been his mother, he realized that no matter where he had been raised or under what circumstances, he still carried Korean blood. He decided to learn Korean, not just to find his mother, but to truly understand the people and culture that had shaped him. But it wasn't just Simon who changed. The women he met changed too. His presence was a miracle to them, proof that lost children could still find their way back. Many had spent their entire lives in sorrow and regret, but seeing Simon gave them comfort. They no longer felt alone in their pain, because now there was someone willing to listen, to share, and to help them confront the past. Will Simon find his mother? Will his journey lead to the closure he seeks? Or perhaps, what truly matters is not the destination, but the lessons he learns along the way. Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow along as Simon continues his deeply moving journey. Hope and connection. Simon's journey to his roots. Simon has yet to find his birth mother, but every encounter and every story he hears helps him piece together fragments of the past. The words of the women in the camp town community feel like scattered memories, revealing a world he never knew. He begins to understand the struggles his mother might have faced, the societal stigma, the heartbreaking choices many women of that time were forced to make. His search is no longer just about uncovering his origins. It has become a journey of empathy and connection. Slowly, Simon realizes that even if he hasn't found his mother yet, he has discovered something just as valuable: a community, a spiritual family. The women who lost their children now see him as a bridge to their past. Some of them cry as they embrace him, as if they are holding their long-lost child. An elderly woman grips his hand, tears streaming down her face. "You may not be my son, but you are a part of our story." Her words leave Simon speechless, overwhelmed with emotion. Beyond the tears, there are moments of warmth and hope. Some of the women excitedly teach Simon simple Korean phrases, words of love and endearment that his mother may have once spoken to him. He realizes that to truly connect with his past and with the people here, he needs to understand their language. This realization sparks a major decision. He wants to learn Korean, not just to find his mother, but to truly appreciate and embrace the culture that shaped his existence. When Simon shares this desire, the women smile through their tears. They eagerly start teaching him basic words, patiently correcting his pronunciation. These lessons are more than just language. They are a deep, heartfelt connection. Though they cannot replace his birth mother, they can at least help bring him closer to her by teaching him the language she once spoke. Simon's journey is not just transforming him, it is also changing the women he meets. Where once they only carried the pain and regret of losing their children, Simon's presence brings them comfort. Some say that seeing him makes them feel as if their own lost children might still be out there, that there is still hope, that connection is still possible despite the passing years. For the first time in a long while, they no longer feel alone in their stories. Simon leaves the gathering with a different perspective. He no longer feels the same emptiness as before. Instead, he feels a sense of fulfillment, filled with love, with hope, and with the start of a new chapter in his journey. He is not just searching for his mother. He is becoming a link that reconnects a community long fractured by fate. This journey is no longer just his own. It belongs to everyone who has ever experienced loss and is now seeking to heal. Do you think Simon will find his mother? Do you believe that connections between people with shared experiences can help heal the wounds of the past? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow for more updates on Simon's emotional journey. Meeting the community of young women. Simon's emotional journey. Simon stepped into the small room where a group of middle-aged women had gathered. They were former workers from the camp towns near U.S. military bases in South Korea, places where his mother might have once worked. As their eyes met his face, a heavy silence filled the room. Then, like a rising tide, emotions surged. Sobs broke out as the women stepped forward to embrace him. They weren't just seeing a foreign young man. In that moment, Simon became a reflection of the children they had lost, souls wandering between two worlds. Some of the women couldn't hold back their tears. They gently touched Simon's face as if he were their own child, the child they had been forced to part with. An elderly woman, her eyes filled with painful memories, took his hand and said, "We once had children like you. We had to let them go." Her voice trembled, the weight of the past still an open wound. The room overflowed with empathy, sorrow, and an unspoken sense of hope. As they talked, old stories began to resurface. They spoke of their days working in the camp towns, of lives swept away by the currents of history, of children born into stigma and later sent away. Some had tried to keep their babies, but society wouldn't allow it. Some had fought to the very end, only to lose the battle. When they looked at Simon, they weren't just remembering their own past. They were feeling what their lost children might have gone through, growing up in uncertainty, struggling with identity and searching for a place to belong. Simon listened intently, absorbing every gaze, every story, every trembling hand on his shoulder. Another woman looked at him, regret shining in her eyes. "If my child were here, they'd be about your age. Maybe they're out there searching for me too." Her words cut deep into Simon's heart. He realized that his search for his mother wasn't just his own journey. It was a journey shared by thousands of others who had been separated by fate. This meeting wasn't just a brief reunion. It was a moment that bridged the past and present, connecting mothers with the children they had lost. Some women wished Simon luck in finding his mother, while others simply gazed at him, silent yet full of love. He felt as if he wasn't just searching for his biological mother, he was searching for the truth, for a forgotten part of himself. This story isn't just about one man's journey. It's about an entire generation of lost children. Do you think Simon will find his mother? Can you feel the pain of these women? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow to stay with Simon on his journey back to his roots. The search for roots, a never-ending journey. After years of questioning his origins, Simon finally had the chance to search for his birth mother in South Korea. The Korean police treated his case as a missing person investigation, even though he had never actually gone missing. He had simply been taken from his roots. By combing through archival records, authorities narrowed it down to 94 women whose names and birth dates matched the information in his adoption file. But the problem was that Simon's records might have been altered. His mother's name, birth date, and family background, everything could have been fabricated. He had no way of knowing if his real mother was even on that list. Amid his search, Simon had only one keepsake from his mother, a worn-out wool scarf. She had knitted it in the final days she spent with her son. As a child, he never fully understood its significance, but now it was the only tangible link to his past. His mother had once told him, "When this scarf is finished, it will be time for us to part." And just as she had said, the moment the last stitch was completed, he was taken from her arms. Simon didn't know if his mother was still alive. If she was, did she still remember the son who had been torn away from her at the age of 4? If she was gone, was there anyone left who could help him piece together the fragments of his past? Every passing day was filled with anxious anticipation. He feared that by the time he finally found her, it might already be too late. Despite the uncertainty, Simon clung to hope. Thousands of Korean children had been sent abroad for adoption in past decades, and some had successfully reunited with their families. If they could do it, so could he. But if he did find her, would she recognize him? The 4-year-old boy she had once held was now a grown man, bearing a different name, speaking a different language. Yet one thing had never changed. He was still her son. Simon promised himself that if he ever found his mother, he would return the scarf to her. Once a symbol of separation, he hoped it would now mark their reunion. But what awaited him at the end of his journey? Truth, joy, or yet another heartbreak? What do you think about Simon's story? If you were in his shoes, would you have the courage to search for your roots? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The Mother's Search, a journey of desperation. In the world of women who once worked in bars near U.S. military bases, there are stories that are never told. G, whose name has been changed for anonymity, is one of them. As a young woman, she was pulled into a life she never wanted, where dreams were suffocated beneath layers of makeup and dim lights. Yet, amid the harsh reality, she had one thing she treasured most: a child. G never wanted to be separated from her son, but society at the time gave her no choice. Mixed-race children were often discriminated against, treated as outsiders in the very country they were born in. In a moment of desperation, she sent her son away for adoption through Holt Children's Services, one of the organizations behind thousands of international adoptions. She convinced herself that this was the only way for him to have a better life. But was it really? Years passed, and G never stopped hoping that one day her son would come back to find her. But now, in her old age battling cancer, that hope is fading. She has searched, inquired, and waited. But there has never been a trace of him. Is her son still alive? Or did the little boy she once held in her arms grow up without ever knowing she existed? G is not alone in her sorrow. Thousands of Korean women in past decades sent their children away, not realizing it would mean losing them forever. When they signed the papers, they were never told that international adoption was a one-way road. Once their child left, they would never have a chance to see them again. No one warned them that records would be falsified, names and birth dates altered, and that by the time their children grew up, all traces of their origins would be nearly erased. Some mothers spend a lifetime searching, only to discover the truth too late. Their letters go unanswered. Their phone calls to adoption agencies are met with cold rejections. They lost their children and could do nothing to stop it. And for many, death arrives before they ever find out whether their child is still alive. G's story is just one of thousands. Do these mothers deserve to be forgotten? Do they deserve an apology? And more importantly, do the children who were taken from them know that somewhere in a distant place, there is a mother who never stopped loving and waiting for them? What do you think about the fate of mothers like G? If it were you, could you forgive the system that took your child away? Share your thoughts below. The identity of a mother. The mystery behind Simon's life. Simon's birth mother was named Kim Kwee-ja, a name almost no one knew, a woman lost in the dark corners of society. She once lived an ordinary life, but fate had pushed her down a path with no return. Under the dim lights of bars near American military bases, Kim Kwee-ja was no longer herself. She became someone else, living under a false name, serving strangers in a world that didn't belong to her. Kim Kwee-ja was never meant to be part of that world, but circumstances forced her into it. When the war ended, waves of American soldiers flooded into South Korea, bringing with them an entertainment industry designed exclusively for them. Bars and clubs sprang up overnight, but behind the glitz and neon lights were stories no one dared to tell. Kim Kwee-ja was swept into this underworld, partly due to financial pressure and partly because of the powerful figures who controlled it. Women like Kim Kwee-ja lost more than just their freedom. They lost their names, their identities. Their Korean names were erased, replaced by foreign ones like Sally, Linda, or Nancy, names that were easy for American soldiers to pronounce, remember, and just as easily forget. These women no longer belonged to themselves. They became mere shadows in a world built to satisfy others. Night after night, they lived under different identities, different lives, until eventually they forgot who they really were. The government at the time claimed to protect women working in the entertainment districts near U.S. military bases, but in reality, that protection was nothing more than empty words. These women had no real choices, no voices, and no way to escape. Kim Kwee-ja was no exception. When the system deemed women like her part of a national duty, they lost all control over their own fate. When Kim Kwee-ja became pregnant with Simon, she knew his future would be bleak. Mixed-race children were often shunned, treated as outcasts by society. She had no choice but to give him up. But was it truly her decision? Or was it forced upon her by a system that never allowed her to be a mother? That question remains a haunting mystery in Simon's life. As Simon grew up yearning to find his mother, he uncovered a painful truth. The woman he was searching for might no longer exist. Not because she had died, but because the name Kim Kwee-ja had been buried under decades of time, erased and replaced by something unrecognizable. She had been erased by the very system that controlled her life. Did she still remember the child she had lost? Was she even still alive to see him again? Simon's journey wasn't just about finding his mother, it was about finding himself. But if Kim Kwee-ja had become someone entirely different, would Simon ever truly find her? Or would he only discover a faded shadow of the past? What do you think about the fate of mothers like Kim Kwee-ja? Did they ever truly have a choice? Share your thoughts below. The psychological impact on Simon, a child lost between two worlds. Simon was taken to the Netherlands at the age of 4, too young to understand what was happening, yet old enough to feel the loss. One day, he was in South Korea with his birth mother, his familiar language, and his own culture. The next, he found himself in a foreign land where no one spoke his native tongue, and there was no trace of his family. That overwhelming sense of displacement haunted Simon throughout his life. Growing up among Dutch children with blonde hair and fair skin, Simon always felt different. It wasn't just his appearance. Deep inside, he had no real connection to this new homeland. Yet, he had only fragmented, blurry memories of South Korea, pieces of a past that refused to come together. He constantly wondered, who am I? Where do I truly belong? But no one could give him an answer. Stuck between two worlds, one he couldn't remember, and another where he never felt at home. Simon struggled with a deep sense of identity loss. No one truly understood the pain he carried. As a teenager, his feelings of alienation intensified, leading him into a downward spiral of depression. By the time he turned 14, his mental state had worsened. He lost all motivation in school and felt useless, unwanted. Sleepless nights spent questioning, why was I abandoned, pushed him further into emotional darkness. Unable to find meaning in his life, Simon turned to self-destructive behaviors. Alcohol and drugs became his temporary escape, dulling the pain for a short while. Yet every time he sobered up, the emptiness inside him only grew. He didn't want to face himself, because deep down, he didn't even know who he was. Despite the overwhelming pain, Simon never let go of one hope: finding his birth mother. To him, this wasn't just about reconnecting with a lost relative. It was about reclaiming his own identity. If he could meet Kim Kwee-ja, maybe she could explain why he was sent away. Maybe she could fill in the gaps in his memory. He believed that only by understanding his past could he finally begin to heal the psychological wounds that had followed him for so many years. Do you think finding his birth mother will bring Simon peace? Or will it only deepen his pain? Share your thoughts below. The adoption process and fake records, the heartbreaking truth behind the procedures. Have you ever imagined that some children still have living biological parents, yet on paper they are labeled as orphans to be put up for adoption? This is not a rare occurrence. It has happened to thousands of South Korean children over the decades. Simon, one of these children, grew up with a distorted identity. His record stated that he had no parents, even though his biological mother, Kim Kwee-ja, was still alive. This heartbreaking truth is not just an administrative mistake, but the result of a system built on forgery and exploitation. Organizations like Korea Social Service, Holt Children's Services, and several private agencies have been accused of falsifying documents to speed up the adoption process. They not only altered birth dates, but also changed parental identities or even fabricated entirely false orphan stories. This did not just legalize the export of children for adoption, it also generated massive profits from foreign adoptive families. Tragically, the children caught in this web of deception grew up with a distorted past, sometimes never able to reconnect with their true origins. To create legal orphans, many agencies did not hesitate to alter every piece of information. Birth parents' names were erased, birth dates were modified, and some children were even placed in orphanages just to legitimize their records. Many biological mothers were persuaded to sign documents they did not fully understand, believing their children would have a better future, unaware that they were permanently losing their right to ever see them again. Simon had no idea about this truth until he reached adulthood. When he began investigating his past, he discovered numerous inconsistencies in his records. False information, an altered birth date, and his mother's identity completely erased. His journey to uncover the truth was not just a personal battle, but also an indictment of the international adoption system, where financial interests sometimes took precedence over the well-being of children. International adoption was once seen as a humanitarian solution to give children a better life. However, behind it lies a vast network of financial interests, from adoption agencies to regulatory bodies. Adoption fees can reach tens of thousands of dollars, and many organizations have exploited legal loopholes to profit. Sadly, biological mothers, who once believed they were securing a better future for their children, were often left with no information about them after losing their parental rights. Children adopted abroad often grow up feeling caught between two worlds, the homeland they do not remember, and the new country where they never feel fully at home. As the truth about falsified records comes to light, many adoptees realize they have been robbed of their right to know their origins. Some spend their entire lives searching for their birth families, only to find out their parents may have passed away or that they will never get the chance to reunite. Today, many organizations and individuals are speaking out against this painful reality, calling for more transparency in adoption procedures. Some, like Simon, have successfully reunited with their birth families, but thousands more are still searching. Will justice be served? Will those responsible for falsifying records ever be held accountable? Most importantly, is there a way for international adoptees to reclaim their identities after so many years have passed? What are your thoughts on this issue? Do you believe falsified records in adoptions can be stopped? Share your opinions in the comments below. Thank you for taking the time to follow my journey. Every step on the path back to my roots has been filled with emotions beyond words, from hope and deep reflection to moments of overwhelming tears. But the most precious thing I've gained is your support and companionship. If this story has touched your heart, please leave a comment, share your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so we can continue exploring meaningful stories together. This journey isn't just mine. It's the story of so many others searching for their way home. See you in the next video.